the Siren's Lament. The mist blanketed the lake like a shroud, the air heavy with the scent of water and decay. In the small village of San Lorenzo, nestled in the heart of Mexico's highlands, the tales of La Llorona had been passed down for generations. She was no ordinary ghost, the elders would say, but a siren-like creature, part woman, part fish, forever mourning the loss of her children. Her cries, they warned, could draw even the strongest soul to a watery grave. Isabella hadn't believed the stories. At 19, she was practical and skeptical, her mind preoccupied with dreams of leaving the village for the bustling city. But when her younger brother, Diego, disappeared near the lake one foggy evening, the legend took on a chilling reality. His small wooden boat had been found overturned, drifting aimlessly, but there was no trace of Diego. The villagers whispered that La Llorona had claimed another. Grief-stricken and desperate, Isabella refused to accept the superstitions. She'd scoured the lake's edge for days, her calls for Diego swallowed by the dense fog. On the fifth night, she resolved to venture onto the water herself, armed with nothing but a lantern and her determination. The lake was unnaturally still as Isabella pushed the small rowboat into the water. The oars creaked with each stroke, the sound echoing across the surface. She called Diego's name, her voice trembling but firm. "Diego, if you can hear me, answer." Only silence replied. She pressed on, the lantern casting a faint golden glow in the thick mist. The farther she went, the more the air seemed to hum with an unseen presence. It was faint at first, like the distant notes of a mournful melody. Then, a sound cut through the quiet. Soft, heart-wrenching sobs. Isabella froze, her grip tightening on the oars. The cries were unmistakable, filled with sorrow so profound it sent chills down her spine. She turned the boat toward the sound, her heart pounding. As she approached, the mist parted to reveal a figure standing waist-deep in the water. The woman's hair flowed like a black river down her back, her white dress clinging to her slender frame. Her shoulders shook with each sob, the sound echoing across the lake. Isabella's voice caught in her throat, but she forced herself to speak. "Excuse me, have you seen a boy? My brother, Diego?" The woman's sobbing ceased abruptly. She turned her head slowly, revealing a face that was both hauntingly beautiful and eerily unnatural. Her eyes glowed faintly, like two distant stars, and her lips curled into a sorrowful smile. "Your brother?" The woman's voice was soft and melodic, tinged with an unplaceable sadness. "He is here. Come closer, and I will take you to him." Isabella's instinct screamed at her to row away, but the promise of Diego held her in place. She leaned forward, peering into the water. The woman extended a hand, her fingers impossibly long and webbed like a fish's fin. "Where is he?" Isabella demanded, her voice wavering. The woman's smile widened, revealing sharp, pearly teeth. "He is waiting," she whispered. "Join me, and you will see him again." Before Isabella could react, the woman lunged, her movements impossibly swift. Her hand closed around Isabella's wrist, her grip like ice. The lantern slipped from Isabella's grasp, plunging them into darkness. The boat rocked violently as the woman's strength pulled Isabella toward the water. "Let go!" Isabella screamed, thrashing against the creature's hold. The water rose around her, cold and suffocating. Her free hand found the edge of the boat, gripping it with all her might. The woman's face loomed inches from hers now, her eyes burning with a mix of sorrow and rage. "Why do you resist?" she hissed. "Do you not love him?" Isabella's mind raced. She remembered the rosary her grandmother had given her, tucked into the pocket of her jacket. Summoning every ounce of courage, she freed her hand and clutched the beads, holding them up between herself and the creature. The effect was immediate. The woman shrieked, recoiling as if struck. Her grip loosened, and Isabella scrambled back into the boat, gasping for air. The creature thrashed in the water, her cries transforming into an unearthly wail that reverberated through the night. Isabella seized the oars, rowing with frantic desperation. The mist seemed to resist her, thickening and clinging to the boat, but she pushed on. Behind her, the wails grew fainter until they were swallowed by the silence. When she finally reached the shore, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. Villagers rushed to her side, their faces pale with fear and relief. Isabella recounted her harrowing encounter, her voice trembling but resolute. Though Diego was never found, Isabella knew the truth. La Llorona had claimed him. She spent the rest of her life warning others, ensuring no one else would fall victim to the Siren's lament. Yet on misty nights, when the lake was veiled in fog, she would stand on the shore, clutching her rosary, and listen. Somewhere in the distance, the mournful cries of La Llorona still echoed, a chilling reminder of the children she had lost, and the lives she would take to replace them. The red eyes of the Moors. The rain had just begun to fall as Thomas trudged along the desolate road, winding through the English countryside. The moors stretched endlessly on either side, dark and uninviting beneath the stormy sky. He had heard the tales of the Black Shuck before, a monstrous black dog with glowing red eyes, said to bring misfortune or death to anyone who crossed its path. But Thomas wasn't one to believe in such nonsense. He was a rational man, and tales of ghostly hounds were for children and the superstitious. Still, as the wind howled and the fog began to creep in, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that he wasn't alone. The road was eerily silent, save for the rhythmic sound of his boots splashing through puddles. The village of Blackthorn was still several miles away, and he cursed himself for leaving his cousin's house so late. The thought of a warm hearth and a pint of ale kept him moving forward, even as the shadows seemed to grow longer and the air heavier. A sudden growl shattered the stillness. Thomas froze, his breath caught in his throat. The sound came again, low and guttural, reverberating through the mist. He turned slowly, his heart pounding. At first, he saw nothing but swirling fog. Then, two glowing red orbs emerged from the darkness, hovering at an unnatural height above the ground. The Black Shuck. Thomas's rationality fled as primal fear took over. The massive creature stepped forward, its black fur matted and slick from the rain. Its eyes burned like coals, unblinking and fixed on him. The beast let out another growl, its breath visible in the cold night air. Without thinking, Thomas bolted, his feet slipping on the wet road. The beast gave chase, its paws pounding against the earth with terrifying speed. Thomas didn't dare look back. He could feel its presence, hear its snarls growing closer. His lungs burned, and his legs ached, but he pushed himself harder, driven by sheer desperation. The road twisted and turned, and Thomas's mind raced as he searched for a way to escape. He spotted a narrow path leading into the moors and veered off the main road. The ground was uneven, the tall grasses whipping against his legs as he ran. The fog was thicker here, swallowing him whole. The growls grew distant, and for a moment, he thought he had lost it. He stopped to catch his breath, his chest heaving. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. He turned in a circle, trying to get his bearings, but the fog obscured everything. He was lost. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it again. The red eyes. They appeared out of the mist, closer than before. The Shuck's growl was low and menacing, vibrating through the ground beneath his feet. Thomas backed away, stumbling over a hidden root. He fell hard, the wind knocked out of him. The beast loomed over him now, its massive form blotting out the weak moonlight. Thomas scrambled backward, his hands clawing at the damp earth. "Stay back," he shouted, though his voice wavered. "Stay away." The Black Shuck tilted its head, as if considering his plea. Then, to Thomas's shock, it spoke. Its voice was a deep, guttural rumble, like thunder rolling through the hills. "Why do you run, mortal?" it asked. "Your fate was sealed the moment you saw me." Thomas's mouth opened and closed, words failing him. The creature's eyes bore into his, and he felt a strange pull, as if the Shuck were looking into his very soul. "Please," Thomas finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to disturb you." The shuck let out a sound that could have been a laugh or a snarl. "Disturb me? Foolish human. I am a harbinger, a shadow of what is to come. Your kind fears me, yet you cannot escape the fate I bring." Thomas's mind raced. He remembered the old tales, the warnings whispered in the taverns. The shuck was not just a beast, but a messenger of death. To see it was to be marked for misfortune or worse. "Is there no way to change it?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "No way to undo what's been done?" The shuck's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps," it said slowly, "but it will cost you dearly." Thomas swallowed hard. "Anything," he said. "Name your price." The beast circled him, its massive paws making no sound on the soft ground. "A life for a life," it said. "Spare another from the fate that awaits them, and I may let you go." Thomas hesitated. The weight of the bargain settled on his shoulders. Could he condemn someone else to save himself? But the thought of his own death, of leaving his family behind, was unbearable. "Who?" he asked finally. "Who must I choose?" The shuck's eyes burned brighter. "That is for you to decide," it said. "But choose wisely. The wrong choice may bring consequences far worse than death." The fog began to swirl, and the shuck's form faded into the mist. "You have until the next full moon," its voice echoed, growing fainter. "Choose, or the choice will be made for you." Thomas was left alone in the silence, the weight of the shuck's words pressing down on him. He stumbled back to the main road, his mind racing. Every face he saw in the village over the coming days haunted him. Who would he choose? Could he live with the guilt? As the full moon approached, Thomas's dread grew. The black shuck's curse was real, and its eyes followed him even in his dreams. When the appointed night arrived, Thomas stood alone on the moors, clutching a knife in trembling hands. The fog rolled in, and the shuck appeared once more, its red eyes burning like fire. "Have you made your choice?" it asked. Thomas's voice broke as he whispered, "Take me instead." The shuck tilted its head, its expression unreadable. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, the beast let out a howl that shook the earth, and Thomas fell to his knees. When he woke, he was alone. The shuck was gone, but its presence lingered in the air. Thomas returned to the village, forever changed. He spoke of the black shuck no more, but the red eyes haunted him until the end of his days. The laughter beneath the surface. The village of Mythical sat nestled between the rolling hills and a meandering river that shimmered under the moonlight. For centuries, the river had been the lifeblood of the villagers, providing water for their crops and fish for their meals. But it was also the source of their greatest fear, the legend of the Kappa, a creature that lurked beneath the surface, waiting to claim unwary souls. The elders often warned the children, never linger by the river alone, especially at dusk. The Kappa loves to play, but its games always end in death. Yumi had heard these tales her whole life. At 17, she was bold and skeptical, convinced that the stories were nothing more than an attempt to keep children from wandering too close to the water. She loved the river, its gentle currents and soothing sounds, and often went there to escape the confines of her small home. One humid summer evening, with the cicadas droning in the trees, Yumi decided to visit the river despite her grandmother's warnings. The setting sun painted the water in hues of gold and crimson as she settled on the bank, dipping her toes into the cool stream. The world felt peaceful, the oppressive heat of the day giving way to the refreshing embrace of night. As she sat, lost in thought, a strange sound broke the tranquility. It was a laugh, low and guttural, echoing across the water. Yumi froze, her heart skipping a beat. She scanned the river, but there was no one in sight. Perhaps it was just her imagination. The laugh came again, closer this time. It was followed by the faint ripple of water. Yumi's eyes darted to the source of the disturbance. A figure began to emerge from the river, its movements slow and deliberate. Her breath caught in her throat. The creature's body was humanoid but grotesque. Its skin was a sickly green, slick with water, and its limbs were unnaturally long. On its head was a shallow depression filled with water, and its face was a nightmare. Sharp, jagged teeth framed a sinister grin, and its eyes burned with malevolence. As it climbed onto the bank, it let out another laugh, a sound that sent shivers down Yumi's spine. "Who are you?" Yumi demanded, though her voice wavered. The creature tilted its head, as if amused by her bravery. "I am Kappa," it said, its voice a wet rasp. "And you, little one, have come to play." Yumi stood, her instincts screaming at her to run, but her legs felt like lead. The Kappa took a step closer, its grin widening. "Do not be afraid," it cooed. "I promise it will be fun." "I don't want to play," Yumi said, backing away slowly. The Kappa's grin faltered, replaced by a look of annoyance. "But you came to my river," it said, its tone darkening. "That means you must play. Those are the rules." Yumi's mind raced. The stories always mentioned the Kappa's obsession with games and its strange sense of honor. If she could outsmart it, perhaps she could escape. "Fine," she said, her voice steadier now. "I'll play your game. But if I win, you must let me go." The Kappa's eyes gleamed with interest. "Agreed," it said. "But if you lose, you will join me beneath the water forever." Yumi nodded, though her hands trembled. "What game will we play?" The Kappa thought for a moment, its webbed fingers tapping against its chin. "A riddle," it said finally. "If you can solve my riddle, you win. If not, you lose." Yumi swallowed hard. "Ask your riddle." The Kappa's grin returned. "I have a face but no eyes, hands but no fingers. I run but never walk. What am I?" Yumi's heart pounded as she considered the riddle. She had heard it before, long ago, in one of the stories her father used to tell. She took a deep breath and said, "A river." The Kappa's grin faltered, its eyes narrowing. "Clever girl," it said, though its tone was laced with irritation. "You have won this round. But we are not finished." "You said one game," Yumi protested. The Kappa let out a laugh, more menacing than before. "And now we play another. This time, we wrestle." Yumi's stomach sank. She knew she couldn't match the creature's strength. But then she remembered another detail from the legends. The water in the Kappa's head was its source of power. If she could make it spill, she might have a chance. The Kappa lunged at her, its long arms reaching out. Yumi sidestepped, barely avoiding its grasp. She darted behind it and, with all her strength, shoved it from behind. The creature stumbled, but quickly regained its footing, its grin now replaced by a snarl. "You're quick," it said, "but not quick enough." It charged again, and this time Yumi dodged to the side, grabbing a large rock from the ground. As the Kappa turned, she hurled the rock with all her might. It struck the creature's head, and the water from its depression splashed onto the ground. The Kappa let out a shriek, clutching its head. Its movements became sluggish, and it sank to its knees. Yumi seized the opportunity and ran, her feet pounding against the earth as she fled toward the village. The creature's laughter echoed behind her, weaker now, but no less chilling. "You may have won tonight," it called, "but I will see you again." Yumi didn't stop until she reached her grandmother's house. She burst through the door, gasping for breath. Her grandmother took one look at her and knew. "You saw it," she said, her voice trembling. "The Kappa." Yumi nodded, tears streaming down her face. "It's real," she whispered. "It's real." From that night on, Yumi never went near the river again. But the memory of the Kappa's laughter haunted her dreams, a chilling reminder of the danger that lurked beneath the surface.